So welcome, Suppliers, customers, and guests. It's a pleasure to be here with you in Irvine, California. It's sunny and warm, and the weather peaked for all of our guests, I guess. We were supposed to have bad weather, and look at what we got. So welcome. This morning's conference is about leadership. Today's conference is about leadership. And not only leadership in general, but leadership specifically with regard to aerospace companies and what it takes to become successful and to sustain that success. So I ask you to consider this Aristotle quote. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, therefore, is not an act, but a habit. And so it's those things that we continually repeat that makes us leaders. Now, all of us would like to be the leader on the white horse, that rides in and saves the day, and we'd like to be the Jack Welch. We read about all of the leaders in all of the books, but the truth is that most of us, myself included, isn't that leader that rides in on a white horse. So we try to look for leadership systems that an average person can follow, that it contains best practices that, when repeated over time, build high performance in a company. And of course, as you know, leadership is one of the three tracks of the roadmap. It's considered to be, by many, just as important as the operational excellence track. Some highlights for this morning. We're going to do an introduction to the leadership track of the roadmap. We've been asked by many, many people to make these conferences more closely linked to the roadmap. And so today is one of those first experiments in really zooming in on the roadmap. And so our leadership exercise, Brent Duggleby will be leading us through an exercise. The day will be highly interactive. There'll be a lot of things for you to do and a lot of things to keep us awake, which is good. And the leadership best practices panel discussion will be 7 leaders who are going to share best practices for each one of the 7 processes, give you a chance to ask questions. I encourage you to really think, as you're listening to a brief presentation from each panel member, what would you like to ask them about those best practices that they're sharing with you. And then finally we'll take a look at the managing change segment, which is, if you've got a leadership system, what are the key points of leadership systems and how do you revitalize the one that you have? And so what are some of the underlying things that strengthen that leadership system? And then finally, we've got 2 excellent customer keynotes today, and so you'll be listening to Northrop Grumman and also Parker Aerospace, 2 excellent speakers that are engaged in supply chain operations in their company, and so an opportunity for you to interact with them and ask questions. Of course, we want to acknowledge and thank our conference sponsor, and not only our conference, but our annual sponsor, Ajit Sharmi, and many of you have met Glenn Fletcher already. So, he was with us all day yesterday and in the evening at the reception. But we want to make sure that those who haven't met Glenn and his colleague, make sure that you meet and support our supporters, I guess I would say. And just to remind you that of how generous Glenn has been with C and how generous he continues to be. On your table are programs, and on the back of one of those programs are the letters SEA, and whoever got the SEA has a gift waiting from Glenn. There you go, there's one with SEA on it. You've got a gift waiting from Glenn. Just show him the SEA on the back of the program. Yeah, you can go run and grab one there. Yeah, and there's Hilda running around passing them out. Conference guidelines. We want to make sure that you know that the cell phones, the PDAs, interfere with our sound equipment, and it usually interferes right at the wrong time. We're videotaping, and we've got, all of these wirelesses. So please remember that, and usually it doesn't show up right away. It shows up at the worst time, and we're running around trying to figure out what's wrong with the sound system. So thanks for your help in that area. Please, all of these presenters have traveled here from many places all over the United States to be with you. They don't get paid to do this. They're doing it because they support the industry. And so what you want to do is maximize your interaction with them, ask questions, and please respect the presenters. And that includes coming back for breaks on time and really giving us your full attention for the short time we're together. There's blue buttons around, and so we made sure that people had blue buttons who knew a lot about C and could answer any questions. If you're a guest or a new member, somebody that has some specific questions, then you'll see some blue buttons around. Some of them say, ask me about C. I've got a very special limited edition here that says, got blue. But those will say, ask me about C. I'm flipping through Mickey's notes because I had no practice at all at being an MC today. So I want to welcome the SAC chairman, and I want to say that the Supplier Advisory Council, or the SAC, is a group of CEOs and owners who have stepped up to provide industry leadership, in the area of supply chain. And they are the primary direction that C gets for everything that we do. If we make changes to the roadmap, if we make changes to the certification, if we make changes to the implementation, all of the webcasts, all of the process owner forums, we really fasten ourselves and get feedback from those key people on the Supplier Advisory Council. And so representing the Supplier Advisory Council as chair, I'd like you to welcome Doug Greene.
Well, thank you, Michael. And it's a pleasure to be here with all of you today, and certainly see some familiar faces from the events Monday and certainly yesterday. We had a benchmarking site visit at our company here locally in Newport Beach, and we talked a lot about leadership. We talked a lot about culture and kind of what that looks like, the flavor of leadership and culture in our company. And I just, again, wanted to thank all of you that came out to support us and go through that tour. So it's a pleasure, and I see a lot of you here today. So that was great. Just a little recap of the events. Monday was the benchmarking. Yesterday, we had our Supplier Advisory Council, and that was an opportunity for the actual public to come and make comments, talk a little bit about what we're doing, what the direction we're doing. So we certainly ask you to, if you can, next time come to the Supply Advisory Council meetings. They're a great way to voice your opinion and help us steer this industry in the right direction. Our summit meeting was yesterday. We had some really nice interactive talk with regards to 100% on-time delivery and certainly quality issues. We were represented both by suppliers as well as customers, and we really appreciate all your input talking about the different issues and what goes on there. And I see that most of you made it back from the reception last night, so I guess that's probably a pretty good thing. We'd like to give you a little overview of the market we're in, and it's pretty unprecedented where we are today. You hear all about the banking issues, you hear all about certainly the housing, maybe that's bottomed out, maybe it hasn't, but our industry that we're in, the aerospace and defense industry, is very strong. Defense, obviously, there's some rocky roads ahead there, but at the same time, I think it's going to be pretty stable. But I'd like to focus a little bit today on this graph. It's just a visual representation of the best guess of all the experts. The nice thing about this, we all listen to, the big guys in the industry, the aerospace giants, Airbus, Boeing, and they make these great predictions. They've got huge orders, huge backlogs. Well, it's always been proven that all those backlogs never come to fruition. But when you look at the guys that really matter, the Wall Street guys, the guys that are going to invest in these companies, the capital guys with all the money, this is kind of their outlook. And it's broken down into the green. It's probably hard to see from that distance, but the green basically represents the worst case scenario. The yellow represents the most probable, and the blue represents, well, you're probably crazy and you'll never get there. Most people do agree that the blue, that represents about 100,000 units. That's, of course, across all jets, whether it's a turboprop, whether it's a regional, anything in between. 100,000 units. Well, most people think that there's no way. The world can't supply that in the next 10, 11 years. There's no capacity, especially in the supply chain. But the most probable is the yellow. And the yellow represents approximately 34,000 units over the next 20 years. Think about that for a second. 34,000 units, that's hundreds of millions of parts. That's not a bad place to be. For an industry like ours, it gives us great opportunity. Even if you look at the worst case scenario, that's some 10,000 units over the next 10, possibly 20 years. That's still enough to go around. So what's the takeaway there? We're absolutely in the best industry that you could possibly be here in America. Probably the best industry in the world right now, and we're in the forefront of it. So we've got some huge opportunities. This could represent, certainly for my company, and hopefully for your company, the next at least 3 to 10 years of sustained growth. So I think we have to ask ourselves, are we ready for that growth? Are we ready to support our industry? Because it is the industry we're in. It's certainly the industry I love. And talking with many of you, we all have a passion for it, and we want to support it. So with that, based on the forecast, I believe there is going to be enormous opportunity for every single person in this room. We have the opportunity right now to grow our companies and to grow value to all the stakeholders in our companies, especially the employees. Because at the end of the day, that's who makes all this happen. But to do this successfully, we have to have a great foundation, and we have to have a great infrastructure. That great foundation, that great infrastructure I'm talking about is a great leadership in yourself, leadership in your companies, and certainly a great culture. The main reason we're here today is to talk about that, leadership and culture, and that very elusive, magical topic that we all know a lot about, but at the same time, we all know very little about. There's been a whole host of great leaders in America's past, starting from George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and our founding fathers. Then leading to President Lincoln and a vast array of the Industrial Revolution pioneers, the Rockefellers, the Fords, the Carnegies, and then, and more importantly, the communicator of our time, Ronald Reagan, and just recently, the inspirational hallmark of our generation, Steve Jobs. No doubt these were all admired and great leaders, but they were also known as great culture creators. I think we would all agree with that. But most of the great leaders are gone now, written up in the textbooks and remembered in our libraries. So now it is our turn. It is our turn to step up to the plate and hit some home runs for our generation. We are now responsible to carry on what all those hardworking, dedicated leaders built and believed in, and to innovate ourselves, take risks, and create a future and a way of life in America that the world will all aspire to emulate. The road is tough for sure. Government is growing at an unprecedented rate. Regulations are trying to strangle our growth and take our hard-earned money. Our educational system is ranked 37th in the entire world. And yes, we do have a Democrat in the White House. I guess these are all great reasons to sit on the sidelines and wait for the next Messiah to come along. But I think our real calling right now is to become the Messiah of our day. Maybe that does not mean becoming the president or CEO of a major Fortune 500 company. Maybe that does not mean being a hedge fund owner making $500 million, $1 billion a year. And maybe it doesn't even mean being the president of the free world. Maybe it means making your own contribution, one person at a time, within your own companies. Creating a culture where all of your employees can thrive, become better citizens, and return home each night safe, and knowing that they made a difference by working for you in your company somewhere here in America. And so with that, in the infamous words of the great Steve Jobs, stay hungry, stay foolish. Thank you.